Hello, hello. Welcome or welcome back. I've made myself a tea for this month's wrap up. Gotta settle in. If you don't have a drink with you, go grab yourself one. You deserve one. I've already had too much coffee today, so I've got a tea now. Who am I kidding? There's never such a thing as too much coffee, even if my doctor may say otherwise. It's okay. I love tea. Really just makes me buzz. It's so great. Yeah, I'd definitely rather have coffee. Happy Halloween! This video should go up on Halloween, assuming life doesn't throw me a curveball, because I used to play soccer, not baseball. Welcome to October's wrap up. You may have noticed the setting in today's video. Spooky season is coming to an end, so I knew I had to film this wrap up at night to really hone in and celebrate the season. I also put Queen of Domestic Thrillers, Sherry Lapina, on display. We have my little friend over there. Say hi. I painted him. I'll insert a little photo. He's so cute. Love him. Let's name him. I ended up reading this month 9 books. Again, it seems to be that 9 books is like my monthly average, which that means by the end of the year I should, 9 times 12, 108. Read 108 books. Ha! Yeah, I don't know about that. I did get through quite a few books from my fall TBR, which I think deserves a high five. In October, I read 1 2.5 star, 1 3 star, 2 3.5 star, 2 4 star, 1 4.5 star, and 2 5-star reads. As always, let's start from the bottom. My 2.5 star of the month brings me so much sorrow, not only over the time that was stolen from me by reading it, but now I'm also questioning my reading experience of the other books I've read from this author, which at the time I loved, but now I'm not really sure if I trust my past self anymore. The book I'm talking about is You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen and McManus. If I didn't know who wrote this book going into it, I would not in a million years have connected it to Miss McManus. I wasn't expecting this to be some like Emily Dickens quality shit, but also not whatever this was. In this YA thriller, we follow the reconnection of 3 old friends over their version of a Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but instead of the fun skip day that they imagined, their rebellious high quickly comes to an abrupt end after they witness one of their classmates' own murder. Okay, problem number 1, the pacing. It was super slow and uneventful. 2/3 of the book were just the characters walking around, so not very interesting. Problem number 2, said characters were very bland. I only liked one of them, Cal, that's what his name was. He was the only friend that was like somewhat unique, and I only really liked him for his hobby. That's about it though. And problem number 3, the characters were not believable as teenagers. They seemed more like children with some teenage-esque qualities. It's kind of a given that you have to suspend your disbelief when reading a thriller set in high school, but in this book you not only have to suspend your disbelief, but your disbelief needs to be in another universe. I was shaking my head so many times while reading this book, being like, how stupid can these kids be? I hate to be harsh, but I'd rather be truthful. I did enjoy the breadcrumbs that Miss McManus sprinkled throughout the story, but overall this is definitely a skip in my opinion. My next book is a romantic comedy, which for me are usually a love or a flop. Sadly, that is what this next one was. Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. The best thing about this book is the potential Instagram photo you could get with it. Wouldn't this just make such a cute post? In this romantic comedy, we start off with following our true crime obsessed protagonist, Phoebe, who has just moved into her old childhood house she'll be living at for the next few months. And even though it is the middle of the night outside, I can relate, Phoebe is adamant about getting her desk, the only piece of furniture she brought with her, down from the roof of her car without it squishing her. Suddenly though, her disheveled looking neighbor shows up out of nowhere, accidentally jump scaring Phoebe, which then activates the paranoid part in her brain, causing her to suspect him as a serial killer. My main issue with this book was that it was just boring. There wasn't any wow factor. If you are a true crime junkie, I could see you enjoying all of the references that are made, which I assume are true. Cannot confirm, but I do remember reading Ted Bundy's name in here at one point. But if you don't know the cases they're referencing, then you're probably gonna be confused. At least that was my experience. The cover gives such pick-me energy, but the actual content inside did not match. There was practically no plot, and the romance didn't do enough to enable it to stay afloat. I feel like this book was trying to be more character focused, which would have been fine if I actually liked the characters. Phoebe was just straight up rude half of the time for no reason at all. If I was Sam, I would have not put up with that shit. After our first interaction, I would have been like, yeah, okay, see ya. Additionally, Sam's character could have been fleshed out more. He seemed like this wholesome sweetheart, but I wanted more so I could get to know him on a deeper level. Now we're gonna get into the books that I actually don't regret reading this month. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie I ended up rating 3.5 stars. Please tell me why it took me so long to come to the revelation that audiobooks are the secret to making household chores somewhat enjoyable. I had a lot of shit I needed to get done one Saturday, so I popped in my AirPods, cranked up my audiobook, and then the next thing I knew, 2 hours had gone by, I finished my audiobook and I got done a lot more chores than I initially thought I was gonna do. I was like disassociating while I was doing chores, which was actually quite enjoyable, not gonna lie. Just taking escapism to the next level. The name of this book perfectly sums up the synopsis. Essentially, there's a murder on the train, the Orient Express, and in Agatha Christie's signature style, we follow the detective as he solves the case. For most of the book, it was sitting at like a 4-star, but then the ending happened and it fell kind of flat. I was expecting an ending akin to And Then There Were None, which was clever and climactic, but that sadly was not the case in this one. I was actually watching Kenya from Lily Reads here on YouTube in her new video where she basically did an author taste test of Agatha Christie, and one of the points she brought up was how she thought all the characters were sketchy as hell, even the detective we follow, and I instantly thought, oh my gosh, she is so right. I definitely suspected him as the culprit at one point, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really make much sense because this book is part of a series that follows the same detective in each novel, so, you know, most likely the detective wouldn't be the murderer. I will say you don't get to know much about his character, which I get it. You're not going to include character development in a series like this in every novel, but still his personality was more closed off in general, so I would have liked if maybe we just got to learn a little bit more about his background. I definitely remember thinking though that this man is hiding something, and I still think he is. Next up is Confess by Colleen Hoover. This was my 8th book I've read from Miss Coho, so I'm slowly but surely getting my way through her backlist. An element in this book is really similar to another one of Colleen's novels. I'm not gonna say which one because that would be a spoiler, but I liked the other one a lot better than this one. So that definitely hindered my reading experience because it felt like I was reading recycled material, even though that book came out after this book, but since I read this book after I read that book, this plot felt like it was copying that book, but still the other Colleen book did it better. As most of you cohorts probably already know, Confess is a romance that follows Auburn and Owen, who is a painter who paints people's confessions. I love how Colleen always knows how to pull on the reader's heartstrings, and this book was no different. I felt so much for the characters in such a short amount of time. Like, this book is only 300 pages. Obviously, it wasn't my favorite Colleen read. It was a bit insta-lovey for me, which is actually a pretty common trope in a lot of her books, and depending on the book, sometimes I can get over it, whereas other times I can't. A really unique aspect about this book is Colleen actually included like Owen's paintings he painted. He's a fictional character, so he can't really paint paintings, but there's actual pictures included of the book of Owen's paintings. Just because adults don't typically read picture books doesn't mean authors shouldn't include pictures in their books. Also, the confessions in this book are actual real confessions Colleen has received from fans, and just knowing that alone while reading some of these confessions left me honestly flabbergasted. I love that word. Some of these confessions you could write a whole book around. Let's kick off my 4-star reads with Someone Had to Do It by Amber and Danielle Brown. I want to start off with saying thank you to the authors for sending me over an electronic arc of their new debut thriller. I was so excited and honored to read their book, and wow, was this a fun, messy time. In this dual POV thriller, we follow Brandy, an intern at this prestigious fashion company, and Taylor, the owner of said company's spoiled, diva-esque daughter. And one afternoon after Brandy overhears a conversation between Taylor and her friends, Brandy finds herself in the middle of a potential murder scheme. The authors did a fantastic job at character development. I appreciated how realistic some of the characters were. Even the characters who were meant to be more of the likable ones still made mistakes. They're human. Of course, they're gonna, you know, fuck up sometimes. To quote Hannah Montana, nobody's perfect. I also really enjoy the conclusion of social commentary on racism in the workplace and how power dynamics play a role into that. I always enjoy books that can educate readers on issues that are important and applicable to today's society. I know many people dislike books with people on the cover, which I am usually in that camp, but something about this cover just like does it for me. Whoever this woman is, she is gorgeous. Makeup, flawless. I'm kind of jealous. Eventually, I would like to pick up a physical copy of this book, not only so I can support the authors, but also because I just want this beauty in my personal library. If this book sounds like something up your alley, mark your calendars. It releases on December 27th. Next up, we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. So I got my copy from Second & Charles, and initially when I hauled this book, someone kindly informed me in the comments that this stamp is actually part of the book, and I indeed did not get it secondhand. Orient from the Public Library of South Carolina. So excuse my error there, I was mistaken. The town the characters live in is actually in South Carolina. But that's a fun, cute little detail. This horror novel is a satiric take on 1980s housewives. We follow a group of suburban moms who break away from their neighborhood book club so they can form their own book club that reads murder mystery novels. Sign me up, I want to be a part of that. But when a mysterious man moves into their neighborhood, really weird shit starts to happen. People start going missing, children start dying. So our protagonist, Patricia, becomes increasingly more convinced that this new neighbor is the cause of this mayhem and is a vampire. I was not expecting all of the commentary on 1980s society that was also included. The way this book makes you feel at some points is horrifying. If you don't like reading about bugs or critters, definitely skip this because some of the scenes just made your skin crawl. If I was one of those characters in those scenes, I would have passed out. This story did drag some, 100 or so pages probably could have been cut, but overall I enjoyed it and I'm glad that I saved it for October, and I'm open to reading more from Grady Hendrix in the future. My 4.5 star of the month was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was such a fun, atmospheric read, perfect for the season. Our protagonist in this book is Casey Fletcher, a recently widowed actress who lately has gotten herself into some bad press. So to counter this, she decides to escape to the peace and quiet of her family's lake house. But Vermont is a lot different from the hustle and bustle of the city, and she soon finds herself quite bored. So Casey picks up her binoculars along with several bottles of liquor and decides to occupy her time all day by lounging on her back porch, spying on the glamorous couple that reside in the house across the lake. The twist in here just kept coming at me. The final one was so unexpected, so much so that I dropped peanut butter in my book. There's some behind the scenes info for you that I didn't mention in my 24-hour readathon where I read this book. Yet another solid thriller from Riley Sager. Moving on to my 5-star reads, let's first start with Carrie Soto's Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I could cry just thinking about how much I love this book. It's right up there with Malibu Rising for me. I might even like it more. I don't know. It was so great though. I ate this book up like a delicious piece of cheesecake. I never wanted it to end. In this novel, we follow ex-tennis star Carrie Soto. Who would have thought? As she comes out of retirement at the age of 37, which in the tennis community is considered old even though that's still pretty young, to defend her Grand Slam record against the up-and-coming tennis player Nikki Chen. My book keeps sliding. I love the themes explored in this book. There's discussion on father-daughter relationships, struggles women face, and learning how to deal with failure. TJR never fails to bring us books with unique formats. Like Daisy Jones was told in an interview style, Malibu Rising jumps between past and present while incorporating different viewpoints from side characters. And this book is told over the course of the tennis matches Carrie participates in. I also love the additional radio interviews TJR included, which enabled us to be able to see how the public viewed Carrie. You know I am a fiend for the girl boss moments. What is a fiend? I can tell you now, Miss Soto is definitely a girl boss. She was such a strong, inspirational character that really defines all of what one can accomplish through hard work. The tennis matches were so fun to read. I would like speed read them because I wanted to see who would win, but then I'd also have to stop myself and be like, Sarah, whoa, slow down, savor the writing, the book's not going anywhere. I'm not very tennis savvy, but still that didn't detract from my reading experience. This book is definitely going on my favorites of the year list. My last read we'll be talking about today, which coincidentally is actually my first read of the month, is Addicted for Now by Kristen Becker-Ritchie. If you don't know, this is the 3rd book in the Addicted series. I knew I should have read this sooner. I loved it. I was scared of her. She is a little thick, but she is beautiful. She is wonderful. I feel like the authors tried to compensate for how short Ricochet was by making their 3rd installment like twice as long. Don't get me wrong, that's definitely not a complaint, just a comment, because I loved all 500 or so pages of this. Lo's relationship with his father was so interesting to explore because on one hand, you can see the toxicity in the relationship, but then you can also sense that Lo's father, in his own messed up kind of way, cares for his child. I feel like in Reich's and Daisy's novel, we might get more insight into Reich's relationship with his father, hopefully. Next up in the Calloway universe is Kiss the Sky. I am so excited. The more you read from the series, the more you get addicted to it, pun intended of course, and the deeper your connections to the characters get. I love this series. It is so engrossing. If you had not started it yet, take this as a sign to do so. Gotta to make my book stack now. It wouldn't be a Sarah Elizabeth wrap up without one. Here are all the books I read in the month of October, plus the 2 additional ones you can't see because those are digital. Now that spooky season is over, will I stop reading thrillers? Definitely not. Okay, my camera just cut out, so I need to close off this video before it dies again. Let me know your favorite read of the month down in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me, my channel out a lot. You can also comment, interact, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. I'd really appreciate it. I hope y'all are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.